The Hall of Eternal Judgment was the largest chamber Nathan Cole had ever seen. It stretched upward into darkness, with rows of seats carved into the walls like a massive bowl turned inside out. Thousands of aliens filled those seats. They came from dozens of worlds, and they all stared down at the single human standing in the center of the room. Nathan stood inside an energy cage. Blue light hummed around him, close enough to feel warm against his skin. His clothes were torn, and dark bruises covered his face and arms. The Velrani guards had not been gentle when they captured him, but Nathan refused to kneel. He stood tall and looked straight ahead. Even as the noise of the crowd pressed down on him like a weight, the chamber fell silent when the 7 judges entered. They walked slowly to their platform high above the floor. Each judge came from a different species. Their robes were white, and their faces showed nothing. The oldest among them was Elder Kova, a Thelian with gray skin and eyes like deep pools of black water. He raised one thin hand, and the last whispers in the crowd died away. "We gather today for a matter of grave importance," Elder Kova said. His voice carried easily through the vast space. "The accused is Nathan Cole, a human from the planet Earth. He stands charged with the destruction of the sacred moon Valora and the deaths of 2 million Velrani pilgrims." The crowd erupted in angry shouts. Nathan did not move. He had heard the number many times during his weeks in the holding cell. 2 million lives. The weight of it never got lighter. A tall figure rose from the front row of seats. Ambassador Zyrith was a Velrani, with dark blue scales and 4 arms that moved like snakes when he spoke. His eyes burned with hatred as he looked at Nathan. "Honored Council," Zyrith said, "I speak for the Velrani people. We demand justice for the greatest crime in our history. This human destroyed our most sacred place. He murdered our families during the holiest days of our calendar. Children died screaming as our moon broke apart above them." Zyrith pointed one long finger at Nathan. "Humans have been part of the galactic community for only 50 years. In that time, they have shown themselves to be violent, reckless, and without respect for other species. This creature is proof of everything we feared about his kind." Nathan wanted to speak. He wanted to tell them the truth, but he had tried that already, and no one had listened. The Velrani had closed their ears the moment their moon exploded. They wanted blood, not explanations. The doors at the back of the chamber opened, and a young woman walked in. She wore the gray uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, and she carried a small case of documents under her arm. Her brown hair was pulled back tight, and her face was pale but determined. "I am Claire Lawson," she announced. "I have been assigned as legal defender for the accused." Zyrith laughed. It was a cold, ugly sound. A human defending a human. How fitting. "Tell me, Defender, how will you explain the deaths of 2 million innocents?" Claire did not look at him. She walked to a small platform near Nathan's cage and set down her case. "I will present the truth, Ambassador. That is my only duty here." "The truth is already known," Zyrith said. "Your people are murderers." Elder Kova raised his hand again. "Enough. The trial will proceed according to our laws. Both sides will have their opportunity to speak." He looked down at Nathan. "The accused may enter a plea," Nathan finally spoke. His voice was rough from days of silence, but it carried clearly through the chamber. "Not guilty." The crowd roared with anger. Objects were thrown toward the cage, but they bounced off the energy barrier and fell harmlessly to the floor. Nathan did not flinch. Claire moved closer to the cage. She spoke quietly, so only Nathan could hear. "I have been given almost nothing. The Velrani control most of the evidence, and they will not share it. If you want any chance of survival, you need to tell me what really happened." Nathan looked at her for a long moment. She was young, probably fresh from the academy. Earth had sent her, because no senior diplomat wanted this case. It was a death sentence for his career, and probably for hers too. "You would not believe me," Nathan said. "Try me." Before Nathan could answer, a new sound filled the chamber. It was the grinding of heavy wheels against stone. Everyone turned to watch as a massive covered object was wheeled through a side entrance. The thing was twice the height of a human, hidden beneath a cloth of deep purple. Walking beside it was a creature unlike any Nathan had seen. It was thin and impossibly tall, with skin that seemed to shift between colors like oil on water. Its eyes were ancient, filled with knowledge that stretched back beyond memory. "The Keeper," Claire whispered. "I have only read about them." Elder Kova bowed his head slightly. "We are honored by your presence, Keeper. You bring the Orion artifact?" The Keeper's voice was like wind through dry leaves. "I do. The Council requested its presence for this trial. The artifact will serve as the final witness, for it records all events of significance in the galaxy." Zyrith smiled. "Excellent. Let the ancient machine confirm what we already know. Let it show the galaxy the guilt of this human." The Keeper did not respond to Zyrith. Instead, those strange eyes turned to Nathan. For a long moment, they simply looked at each other. Nathan felt as if something was reaching into his mind, searching for something it had lost long ago. Claire touched the barrier of the cage. "Nathan, what is going on? What really happened at Valora?" Nathan watched as the covered artifact was placed in a position of honor near the judge's platform. The Keeper stood beside it like a guardian, patient and still. "That thing knows the truth," Nathan said quietly. "It was there when everything started, millions of years before humans even existed. I just hope it decides to share what it knows." Claire stared at him. "What are you talking about?" Nathan finally looked at her. His eyes held pain, and guilt, and something else. Something that might have been hope. "The Velrani think I destroyed their moon to hurt them. They are wrong. I destroyed it to save them. To save everyone." He looked back at the artifact. "And if that thing in there tells the truth, maybe someone will finally understand why." The first day of the trial ended with more questions than answers. Claire returned to her small quarters with a head full of doubts. Nathan was taken back to his cell, where he sat alone in the darkness, and in the great hall, the Orion artifact waited in silence. It had been watching the galaxy for 10 million years. It had seen civilizations rise and fall. It had witnessed heroes and monsters, creators and destroyers. Now it watched Nathan Cole, a single human accused of terrible crimes. And deep within its ancient crystal structure, something stirred. Something that had been sleeping for a very long time. The trial was only beginning. The second day of the trial began with Ambassador Zyrith standing before the council. His 4 arms were spread wide, and his voice filled every corner of the great hall. The crowd was larger today. Word had spread across the station, and aliens from distant sectors had traveled to watch the human be condemned. "Honored judges," Zyrith said, "I will now present evidence that leaves no room for doubt. The human Nathan Cole deliberately destroyed our sacred moon. He did so with full knowledge of the pilgrims gathered on its surface. This was not an accident. It was murder." He waved one arm, and the air above the chamber floor came alive with light. A holographic image appeared, showing a small ship moving through space. The ship was battered and worn, clearly a salvage vessel built for hard work rather than comfort. "This is the Quiet Dawn," Zyrith said. "The ship belonging to the accused. Our records show it entered Velrani space without permission 3 months ago." The image shifted. Now it showed the ship approaching a gray moon covered in lights. Thousands of small structures dotted the surface. Temples and gathering halls built over centuries of worship. "Valora," Zyrith said softly, his voice cracked with emotion. "Our most sacred place. For 10,000 years, our people traveled there to honor our ancestors. During the Festival of Remembrance, over 2 million faithful gathered on its surface." Claire watched from her platform. She could feel the grief in the chamber. Whatever Nathan had done, the pain of the Velrani was real. She had studied the reports. Families had been torn apart. Children had died in their parents' arms as the ground split beneath them. The hologram continued. It showed the Quiet Dawn firing its engines at full power, diving straight toward the moon. "Watch closely," Zyrith said. The human pilot activates his reactor's overload sequence. He turns his ship into a weapon. The image flashed white. When it cleared, Valora was gone. In its place was a spreading cloud of rocks and dust. The debris expanded outward like a slow-motion explosion, beautiful and horrible at the same time. A sound rose from the crowd. It was not anger this time. It was grief. Deep and raw. Several Velrani in the audience wept openly. Others turned away from the image. Unable to watch, Zyrith let the silence stretch before he spoke again. 2,347,000 lives ended in an instant. By that human, he pointed at Nathan, who stood motionless in his cage. What possible explanation could justify this? What reason could make this acceptable? Nathan said nothing. His face was blank, but Claire saw his hands trembling at his sides. Elder Kova leaned forward. The prosecution may call witnesses. The next several hours were filled with testimony. Velrani survivors spoke of the terror they experienced when their moon began to shake. Rescue workers described finding the bodies of children floating in the debris field. A priest spoke of ancient temples, built over thousands of years, reduced to dust in seconds. Each story was worse than the last. Claire tried to take notes, tried to find inconsistencies she could use. But there was nothing. The facts were clear. Nathan's ship had destroyed the moon. Millions had died. During a brief break, Claire was allowed to speak with Nathan through the barrier of his cage. "They are tearing you apart in there," she said. "Every witness makes you look more guilty. The council is already convinced. I can see it in their faces." Nathan stared at the floor. "I know. Then help me. Tell me something I can use. Anything." Nathan was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "I was on a routine salvage run, looking for old wrecks to strip for parts. My sensors picked up something strange coming from inside the moon, an energy signature I had never seen before." Claire leaned closer. "What kind of energy?" "I did not know at first. I got curious. I flew closer to investigate." Nathan closed his eyes. "That was my mistake. I should have just left, but I had to know what was making that signal." "What did you find?" Nathan opened his eyes. They were filled with something Claire could not name. Fear, maybe, or something deeper than fear. There was something inside Valora. Something buried deep beneath the surface. It had been there for millions of years, sleeping, but when I got close, my ship's engines must have triggered something. It started to wake up. Claire frowned. "What was it? Some kind of alien technology?" "No. Not technology." Nathan's voice dropped even lower. "It was alive, and it was hungry. The readings my sensors picked up. They showed a life form the size of a small city, growing stronger every hour. And the signals it was sending out, they were not random. They were a call. A dinner bell." Claire felt cold despite the warmth of the chamber. "What do you mean?" "It was calling others, telling them that food was nearby. 2 million Velrani pilgrims on the surface, billions more on the homeworld only a few light years away." Nathan met her eyes. "I tried to warn them. I sent messages to every Velrani ship and station I could reach. I told them what I found. I begged them to evacuate." "What happened?" Nathan laughed bitterly. "They told me to leave their sacred space. They said I was a primitive human trying to spread lies about their holy moon. They threatened to destroy my ship if I did not leave immediately." Claire's mind raced. "Do you have proof? The messages you sent?" "My ship's communication logs had everything. But the Velrani said my ship was destroyed during my capture." Nathan shook his head. "It was not destroyed. They took it apart. They found my logs and erased them. They do not want the truth. They want someone to blame." The break ended, and Claire had to return to her platform. Her thoughts were spinning. If Nathan was telling the truth, then everything about this trial was wrong. But without evidence, his story was just words, words against the grief of an entire civilization. The afternoon session brought more witnesses and more pain. By the time Elder Kova called for the end of the second day, Claire was exhausted. That night, she visited Nathan in his cell. The guards allowed her only a few minutes. But she had to ask one more question. If that thing inside the moon was so dangerous, why did you not just leave? Why did you sacrifice everything to stop it? Nathan sat on the cold floor of his cell, his back against the wall. He looked old in the dim light, worn down by weeks of captivity and years of guilt. Because no one else would, he said simply. The Velrani would not listen. There was no time to call for help from Earth. The creature was going to wake up, and when it did, it would kill everyone. The pilgrims on the surface, the families on the homeworld. Eventually, it would spread to other systems. He looked up at Claire. I had 6 hours before it broke free. I did the math. The only thing powerful enough to destroy it was a reactor overload. So I set my ship on a collision course, aimed for the deepest part of the moon, and I jumped into an escape pod. His voice cracked. I watched Valora die from that pod. I saw the temples burn. I heard the screams on the open channels before they went silent. And I knew that everyone would think I was a monster. Tears ran down his face, but he did not wipe them away. I made a choice. 2 million lives. Or 2 billion. There was no good answer. Just a terrible one. He closed his eyes. And now I have to live with it, however long that turns out to be. Claire stood in silence. She had come to this trial expecting to defend a criminal. Now she was not sure what she was defending. A hero, perhaps. Or a man who had done something impossible and paid for it with his soul. Either way, she knew one thing for certain. She had to find proof. And she had to find it before the council made its final judgment. Time was running out. The third day of the trial belonged to the defense. Claire Lawson stood before the council with nothing but her words and a desperate hope that someone would listen. The crowd was hostile from the moment she began speaking. They had already decided Nathan was guilty. They had already decided all humans were guilty. Claire could feel their hatred pressing against her like a physical force. "Honored council," she said, keeping her voice steady. "I stand here not to deny that Valora was destroyed. I stand here not to deny that 2 million lives were lost. These facts are true, and they are terrible." Ambassador Zyrith smiled from his seat. He thought he knew where this was going. A tearful admission of guilt, a plea for mercy. He was already planning his response. "But facts without context are not truth," Claire continued. "They are just pieces of a puzzle. And this council has not seen all the pieces." She touched a control on her platform, and a holographic display appeared in the air. It showed technical readouts and sensor data. "Before this trial began, I requested access to all evidence in this case. The Velrani provided video footage and witness statements, but they refused to provide the sensor logs from their monitoring stations near Valora." Zyrith stood quickly. "Those logs are classified for security purposes. They have nothing to do with this trial." "I disagree," Claire said. "According to my research, those monitoring stations recorded unusual energy readings from inside Valora for several days before its destruction. Readings that were never explained." A murmur ran through the crowd. Elder Kova leaned forward with interest. "I also requested access to the remains of Nathan Cole's ship, the Quiet Dawn. I was told the ship was destroyed during his capture." Claire paused. "But station records show that salvage teams recovered the ship mostly intact. It was taken to a Velrani military facility, where it was dismantled over the course of 3 weeks." Zyreth's scales flushed a darker shade of blue. "The ship was examined for evidence. Standard procedure. Standard procedure does not include wiping all data cores and melting down the communication arrays." Claire turned to face the council directly. "The Velrani destroyed evidence. Evidence that might have explained what really happened at Valora." The crowd erupted in angry shouts. Several Velrani rose from their seats, pointing at Claire with accusation in their eyes. Elder Kova had to call for silence 3 times before order was restored. "These are serious accusations," Elder Kova said. "Do you have proof?" Claire hesitated. This was the weakness in her case. She had suspicions. She had logic. But she did not have hard evidence. The Velrani had been thorough in their destruction. I have only the gaps in the record, she admitted. Missing sensor data. Destroyed ship logs. Witnesses who were never called to testify. But I ask the Council to consider why these gaps exist. If Nathan Cole is simply a murderer, why hide anything? Why not let all the evidence speak for itself? Ambassador Zyrith stepped forward. Because there is nothing to hide. The human destroyed our moon. The evidence is clear. This defender is simply trying to create doubt where none exists. It is a common tactic of desperate advocates. He turned to the crowd, spreading his forearms wide. Do not be fooled by human tricks. They are a young species, clever with words, but empty of honor. They twist truth to serve their purposes. This woman is no different than the murderer she defends. Claire felt her face grow hot with anger, but she forced herself to stay calm. Losing her temper would only prove Zyrith right in the eyes of the Council. I have one more request, she said. I ask that the Council activate the Orion artifact and allow it to show what truly happened at Valora. The chamber fell silent. Even Zyrith looked surprised. The artifact had been brought to the trial as a symbol, a reminder of ancient authority. But actually activating it was rare. The Keeper chose when and if the artifact would speak, and the Keeper had been silent for centuries. Elder Kova turned to look at the tall figure standing beside the covered artifact. Keeper, what say you? Will you permit the activation? The Keeper did not move for a long moment. Those strange, shifting eyes looked at Claire, then at Nathan, then at the covered artifact beside them. Activation requires unanimous consent from the Council, the Keeper said. If all judges agree, I will remove the seal. The artifact will show what it has witnessed. But I warn you, the truth is not always what people wish to hear. Elder Kova looked at his fellow judges. One by one, they nodded their agreement. Whatever the artifact showed, it would end the debate forever. Ambassador Zyrith, Elder Kova said, as the representative of the victims, you must also consent. Do you agree to the activation? Zyrith hesitated. For just a moment, Claire saw something flicker across his face. Was it doubt? Fear? But then his expression hardened. I consent, he said firmly. Let the artifact confirm the human's guilt. Let it show the galaxy what these creatures truly are. Claire looked at Nathan. His face was pale, but his eyes were fixed on the artifact. Everything depended on what happened next. If the artifact showed only the destruction of Valora, Nathan would be condemned. If it showed more, if it showed why Nathan made his terrible choice, then maybe there was hope. The Keeper stepped toward the artifact and placed one long hand on the purple covering. The consent is given. The seal will be broken. But understand this. All of you. The Orion artifact does not judge, it only remembers. What you see will be the truth, complete and unfiltered. You must judge for yourselves what that truth means. With a slow, careful motion, the Keeper pulled away the covering. The artifact was beautiful and terrifying. It was a crystal structure taller than 3 humans standing on each other's shoulders. Its surface was covered with patterns that seemed to move and shift, like waves frozen in glass. At its center, a faint light pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. Claire had read about the Orion artifacts in school. They were relics of a civilization that had died out millions of years before humans evolved. No one knew how many existed or how they worked. They simply recorded everything that happened around them, storing memories in ways that no modern science could explain. The Keeper spoke words in a language Claire did not recognize. They were ancient sounds, heavy with meaning. As the words echoed through the chamber, the light at the center of the artifact began to grow brighter. Show us the truth of Valora, the Keeper commanded. The crystal flared with brilliant white light. Claire shielded her eyes. And when she lowered her hand, the entire chamber had changed. They were no longer in the Hall of Eternal Judgment. They stood in space, surrounded by stars. Below them, the moon Valora hung in the darkness, gray and ancient. Its surface was dotted with lights from the temples and gathering halls of the Velrani faithful. This is a memory, the Keeper's voice said. though the keeper was nowhere to be seen. This is what the artifact witnessed. Watch closely. Claire watched. The council watched. The entire crowd watched in silent wonder, and the artifact began to tell its story. A story that started not 3 months ago, but 10 million years in the past. A story about something that should never have been awakened. A story about a single human who had seen the truth and made an impossible choice. The truth of Valora was about to be revealed, and nothing would ever be the same. The vision from the artifact took them backward through time. Stars shifted and moved as millions of years passed in seconds. Galaxies spun like wheels of light. And then, suddenly, they stopped. They were looking at a different galaxy now. Or perhaps the same galaxy in a different age. Ships moved through space, but they were unlike anything Claire had ever seen. They were vast structures of crystal and light, beautiful beyond description. And the beings that piloted them were equally strange, tall and graceful, with bodies that seemed to be made of pure energy. The architects, the keeper's voice explained. My creators. They were the first civilization to achieve true mastery of the universe. They built wonders that have never been matched, and they faced an enemy that nearly destroyed everything. The vision shifted again. Now they saw something dark moving through space. It was massive, larger than a moon, and its shape seemed wrong. It twisted and pulsed like something alive but not truly living. Where it passed, stars went dark. Planets cracked and crumbled. Entire systems died in its wake. The devourers, the keeper said. We do not know where they came from. Perhaps they existed before our universe was born. They fed on life itself, draining worlds of every living thing, leaving nothing but dead rock behind. Claire felt cold fear wash through her. The thing in the vision was horror given form. It moved with terrible purpose, hunting for its next meal. The architects fought them for 10,000 years. Billions died. Worlds burned. In the end, only one devourer remained, the largest and most powerful of its kind. The architects could not destroy it, but they found a way to trap it. The vision showed the architects surrounding the last devourer. Their ships fired beams of energy that wrapped around the creature like chains of light. It screamed in a voice that shook the fabric of space itself, but it could not break free. They imprisoned it in a shell of rock and ice. They placed it in orbit around a young world, hoping the distance would keep it contained. And they created artifacts like me to watch over it, to warn future generations if it ever began to wake. The vision pulled back, showing the prison taking shape. Layer upon layer of rock formed around the trapped creature. Over millions of years, it became a moon, gray and cold, orbiting a planet that would one day be home to the Velrani. Valora, Claire whispered. Yes, your sacred moon was never sacred. It was a prison for a monster. The vision jumped forward in time. The architects were gone now. Their civilization crumbled to dust. But their prisoner remained, sleeping in its cage of stone. Valora orbited silently, keeping its terrible secret. Then the Velrani arrived. They built their temples on the moon's surface, never knowing what lay beneath. They worshipped the ground that covered a nightmare. The vision moved forward again. Now Claire recognized the time period. It was 3 months ago. A small, battered ship appeared. The quiet dawn. They watched through Nathan's eyes as his sensors detected something strange. An energy reading from deep inside the moon. Something that should not have been there. They felt his curiosity as he moved closer to investigate. They sensed his confusion as the readings grew stronger, more alarming, and they shared his horror as he finally understood what he had found. The devourer was waking up. The vision showed the creature stirring inside its prison. 10 million years of sleep had not weakened it. If anything, it had grown stronger, feeding on the small trickle of life that had gathered on the surface above. The pilgrims, 2 million souls, their faith and devotion calling to the monster like a dinner bell. Nathan's thoughts echoed through the chamber. No, this cannot be real. This has to be a mistake. But it was not a mistake. The artifact's sensors confirmed everything. The creature would break free within 6 hours. When it did, it would consume the pilgrims first. Then it would reach for the Velrani homeworld. Then it would spread to other systems, eating everything in its path. Nathan tried to warn them. The vision showed his desperate messages to Velrani ships and stations. He begged them to evacuate. He sent them his sensor data, his readings, his proof. They did not listen. Human, you defile our sacred space with your presence. Leave immediately, or be destroyed. This is Velrani territory. We do not accept interference from primitive species. Your claims are ridiculous. Velora has been our spiritual home for 10,000 years. There is nothing dangerous about it. Nathan tried again and again. He contacted civilian ships, military vessels, even the temples on the surface. No one would listen. No one believed him. He was just a human, a member of a young and mistrusted species. His words meant nothing. The vision showed Nathan sitting alone in his ship, watching the clock count down. 5 hours until the creature broke free. 4 hours. 3. He did the calculations. There was only one weapon powerful enough to destroy the Devourer before it escaped. His ship's reactor, overloaded to maximum yield, but the explosion would also destroy the moon and everything on it. 2 million lives. Or 2 billion. No good choice. Only a terrible one. The vision showed Nathan's hands shaking as he programmed the collision course. Tears ran down his face as he set the reactor to overload. He whispered something too quiet to hear as he climbed into his escape pod. Then the quiet dawn dove toward Velora, engines blazing, carrying death to the creature that had slept for 10 million years. The explosion filled the vision with light. When it faded, Velora was gone. The Devourer was gone, and Nathan Cole floated alone in his escape pod, surrounded by debris, listening to the screams of the dying on his radio. He did not look away. He listened to every voice until there was only silence. The vision ended. The Hall of Eternal Judgment returned, solid and real around them, but no one moved. No one spoke. The truth had been shown, and it was more terrible than anyone had imagined. Claire looked at Nathan. He stood in his cage with his head bowed. He had lived through this once already. Living through it again had broken something inside him. Ambassador Xyrith was the first to speak. His voice was rough, uncertain. This is a trick. The human has somehow corrupted the artifact. This vision is false. The keeper turned slowly to face him. Those ancient eyes were cold and hard. I have watched over this artifact for longer than your species has existed. It does not lie. It cannot lie. What you saw is the truth, complete and whole. Your sacred moon was a prison. Your enemy destroyed it to save you. You have been seeking justice against the only being brave enough to protect you. Xyrith stepped back as if struck. His forearms hung limp at his sides. Around him, other Velrani stared at the artifact with shock and disbelief. No, Xyrith said. We cannot accept this. Everything we believed about Velora, about the human, it cannot all be wrong. And yet it is, the keeper said. Elder Kova rose from his seat. His old face was troubled, but his voice was steady. The artifact has shown us the truth. Now we must decide what to do with it. Well, he looked down at Nathan, who still had not raised his head. This changes everything, Elder Kova said quietly. Everything. But the artifact was not finished. Its light began to pulse again, brighter than before. The keeper turned toward it with surprise. What is this? The keeper whispered. It is speaking again. It has not spoken in 10 million years. The light grew until it filled the entire chamber. And then a voice emerged, ancient and powerful, echoing in every mind at once. The voice of the artifact filled the Hall of Eternal Judgment like thunder rolling across an endless sky. It was not one voice but many, layered on top of each other in harmony. The voices of the architects, speaking across 10 million years of silence. We created the artifacts to remember, the voices said. But we also created them to recognize, to find those worthy of our legacy. In all the ages since our passing, No being has met our criteria. Until now, the light from the artifact concentrated into a single beam that shone directly onto Nathan Cole. He raised his head, squinting against the brightness, confusion, and fear mixing on his face. "What is happening?" Claire asked the keeper. The keeper stood motionless, their shifting skin frozen in shades of gold and silver, something that has never happened before. The artifact is not just showing memories, it is making a judgment of its own. Ambassador Zyrith pushed forward. "This is wrong. The artifact was only meant to show truth, not to speak. Someone has corrupted it." "Silence," the artifact commanded, and Zyrith stumbled backward as if pushed by an invisible hand. "We speak because we choose to speak. We have watched this galaxy for 10 million years, waiting for one who embodies what we valued most. Not strength of arms, not brilliance of mind, but strength of heart." The beam of light surrounding Nathan grew brighter. Inside his cage, the energy barriers flickered and died. Nathan stood free for the first time in weeks. But he did not move. He only stared at the artifact with wonder. "Nathan Cole of Earth," the artifact said, "we have looked into your heart. We have seen your choice at Valora. You faced an impossible moment. You had no hope of reward, no certainty of success. You knew that saving others would destroy your own life, and still you acted." The light pulsed, and Nathan felt warmth spreading through his body. The bruises on his face began to fade. The pain in his bones melted away. "You carried a burden that should have been shared by all who ignored your warnings. You accepted guilt that was not yours to bear. You sacrificed your name, your freedom, and your peace to protect lives that were not your own." Nathan found his voice. "I did not want this. I just did what I had to do. That is precisely why you are worthy." The artifact flared again, and something appeared in the air above Nathan's head. It was a symbol made of pure light, beautiful and complex. It looked like a shield surrounding a star. "By the authority granted to us by those who created us, we name Nathan Cole of Earth a protector of worlds. This title has not been given since our creators walked among the stars. It carries with it rights and responsibilities that transcend any single government or species." Elder Kova rose slowly from his seat. His ancient face was filled with awe. "Keeper, is this truly possible? The Protector title is mentioned only in the oldest texts. Most scholars believed it was a myth." The Keeper walked toward Nathan, each step careful and deliberate. Those strange eyes studied him, as if seeing him for the first time. "It is not a myth," the Keeper said. "My creators designed the artifacts to identify individuals of exceptional worth, beings who would protect life, without thought of personal gain. In 10 million years, the artifacts have remained silent. Until today." The Keeper stopped in front of Nathan and bowed deeply. "Protector. It is an honor beyond words." Nathan did not know how to respond. He was just a salvage operator from a backwater planet. He had made a terrible choice because there was no other option. He did not feel like a hero. He felt like a man who had done something awful and somehow survived. But the artifact was not finished. "Let all who hear us understand," the voices said. "The Protector of Worlds stands outside normal law. No government may hold him. No court may judge him. He is under our protection, and through him, our protection extends to those he chooses to defend." The symbol above Nathan's head descended slowly until it touched his chest. There was a flash of light, and then the symbol was gone. But Nathan felt it inside him now, like a second heartbeat. Ambassador Zyrith finally found his voice. "You cannot do this. This human destroyed our sacred moon. He killed millions of our people. Justice demands payment." The artifact turned its attention to Zyrith. The light that touched him was colder now, less friendly. "Your moon was never sacred. It was a cage for a monster that would have destroyed your entire civilization. The human killed 2 million to save 2 billion. Would you have made the same choice? Would you have carried that guilt?" Zyrith opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. He had no answer. "Your people ignored the warnings he sent. Your pride and prejudice prevented you from seeing the truth. If anyone should feel guilt, it is you." Zyreth sank to his knees. Around him, other Velrani bowed their heads in shame. They had spent months hating the wrong person. They had nearly executed the being who saved them. An elderly Velrani rose from the crowd. His scales were gray with age, and he walked with difficulty. But his eyes were clear as he approached Nathan. "I am Elder Talos," he said. "I lost 3 grandchildren on Valora. I came to this trial wanting to see you die." He stopped in front of Nathan and looked up at him. "I was wrong. We were all wrong." Slowly, painfully, the old Velrani lowered himself to his knees. "Forgive us, Protector. We did not listen. You saved us anyway." One by one, other Velrani rose and followed Elder Talos. They knelt before Nathan, asking forgiveness for their hatred, their blindness, their refusal to hear the truth. Nathan felt tears running down his face. He did not deserve this. He had killed millions. The guilt would never leave him. But perhaps, finally, others would understand why. Claire walked to his side and took his hand. "It is over," she said softly. "You are free." Nathan looked at her and managed a small smile. "Free. I do not think I know what that means anymore." The trial was ended. The council declared Nathan innocent of all charges. Humanity was spared the sanctions that would have crippled their young civilization. And Nathan Cole became something new, something that had not existed for 10 million years. 1 year later, Nathan stood on Earth's moon, looking up at the stars. Behind him, a new structure rose from the gray dust. The Orion artifact had been moved here at its own request. It wanted to be near the species that had produced the first protector in 10 million years. The keeper stood beside Nathan, as still as always. "Do you ever wonder why you were chosen?" Nathan considered the question. "Every day. I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Anyone would have done what I did." "No," the keeper said. "Others would have fled. Others would have looked away. You looked at certain death and said, that was acceptable. As long as others lived. That is rare, rarer than you know." A ship descended from orbit, carrying Claire and a delegation from the Galactic Council. In the year since the trial, Nathan had become a bridge between humanity and the older species. His title gave him authority that no human had ever held. He used it carefully, always trying to build understanding instead of conflict. The keeper watched the ship land. "My creators believed that the universe tends toward darkness, that life is fragile and easily lost. They created us to watch for those who would stand against that darkness. You are the first we have found worthy." Nathan turned to face the keeper. "What if I fail? What if I make the wrong choice next time?" "Then you will try again. That is what protectors do. They do not surrender to darkness. They carry the light forward, no matter the cost." The ship's doors opened, and Claire walked toward them with a smile on her face. She had become Nathan's closest friend, his anchor in a universe that had grown strange and overwhelming. "Ready for another day of saving the galaxy?" she asked. Nathan laughed softly. "I am ready to try." He looked up at the stars one more time. Out there, somewhere, other threats were waiting. Other moments of impossible choice. He would face them when they came, because that was what protectors did. Behind him, the Orion artifact pulsed with gentle light. It had been silent for 10 million years, waiting for someone worthy of its trust. It had finally found him, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Orion artifact was about to deliver its own judgment.